Welcome to Making Sense, the Guest Spotlight. My name is Alison Blackler and I have had the privilege of talking to some fantastic guests over recent times. You can hear their interviews here. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I am delighted to say that I have a very special guest with me here on Making Sense, and I'd like to welcome Lisa Unger. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. So just to introduce myself, I'm a nutritional therapist and I work with people who have a disordered relationship with food or have eating disorders to really help them change how they think about foods, their beliefs, their behaviors, so that they can eat food without it being really, an issue in their lives.
Brilliant. I love that. And I think for me as well, it's just homing in, isn't it, on the problems that we often have in our lives. It is about the relationship we have with that thing, whether it be food, whether it be exercise or whatever it is, that actually is often where the problems lie.
Absolutely. So I find that with my clients, obviously we do talk about food a little bit at the beginning. I explain about nutrition. I explain about, why we need all the different food groups and the balance that we need to eat them in, kind of thing. But most of the work we do is actually about all the things that are keeping them stuck in the way that they eat. So, for example, we eat a certain way from habit because we might have certain beliefs about food. This is a good food, this is a bad food. Body image is a big one. Body image and self-esteem are very intertwined with each other. So that if we are unhappy in our bodies, we're always trying to change it. How do we do that? We restrict. But what happens when we restrict? We can't keep it up. And then we binge. Beliefs is a really big area. So, for example, I grew up with a belief that I couldn't leave the table until I'd finished all the food on my plate. And as an adult, it's really hard to separate that. And hunger and fullness doesn't really come into it. So there's lots of things keeping us stuck in the way that we eat. And we do a lot of work to change those thoughts, really.
I love that. And I think it is, isn't it? We listen to some of the things that we're saying to ourselves, and yet you can hear it from being quite childlike, or it is a parent's statement, you have to finish your plate, or all these things that I know does massively impact on people's relationship with food.
Absolutely. So I've got a little tip there if you'd like one.
Yeah.
So if you mentioned about that childlike voice. So that childlike voice is sort of saying, I want that. And the adult voice is going, no, you can't have it. It's not healthy. And I don't know about you, but I know that in my past, I used to spend ages trying not to eat that chocolate bar. And I would eat all around the kitchen, everything else I could get my hands on. And in the end, I'd eat the chocolate bar anyway. And it was, so what I get people to do, which is the thought of it is, it's a bit strange, but if you take a mouthful of chocolate and at the same time take a mouthful of, celery, so in the same mouth you've got chocolate and celery, and eat that, you're absolutely killing that argument, because you're having the chocolate and you're having the celery. You're having the non-nutritious and the nutritious at the same time. Right. And it also stops the brain with that, that having that conversation, if you like.
And I think that there is something in that, what you resist persists. If you are thinking, don't have, I don't want, it's like your mind is laser focused, isn't it, on the thing that you're trying not to have. And that in itself lies a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, when I work with people, I explain to them that we don't ban foods. We don't ban any foods. We don't label foods good and bad either. Food is food. And, food is not just food in our lives, because food is also wrapped up in our culture, in our enjoyment, our social life. And so it's very difficult to separate food from those areas. It's not like alcohol is something that you don't need. You might choose to have it, but we need food. We need it for energy.
Definitely.
So it's not about banning foods, because obviously when you ban it and you restrict yourself from it, you want it even more. It's on your mind much more
Exactly.
than it would be if you ate it.
Exactly. And I think there's something in there for me when I've been working with people who've been trying to, change their eating habits, is to move away from the kind of idea around what you've just said you can't have, but also that dieting. I don't know what your thoughts are on, as soon as you start to focus on, I'm on a diet, it just seems to put people under a great deal of pressure, whereas if they're able to choose to eat certain foods, it changes up how they see themselves. And something else that I'm definitely usually encourages people to do, and I'm interested in what your thoughts on this is to not be on the scales every 5 minutes as well if they're trying to lose weight, because we can change so much, can't the scales can knock your confidence so much. So when I've done weight management type stuff with people, I've often banned the scales. What's your thoughts on that, Lisa?
Absolutely. I don't ban them straight away, because everything that I do is step by step, because I find that if I ban people from doing stuff, it absolutely stresses them out. And therefore then, I'm trying to reduce stress, not add to it, but we definitely cut it down with a goal of stopping altogether. Nice. The trouble is with scales, you get on them and they dictate your day before you've even got started. Because if you've lost weight, you're like, well, hey, I've had a brilliant, this is going to be brilliant. I'm so clever. I'm really proud of myself. And if you get on them and you haven't lost weight, or you've put on weight, then immediately it's a bad day. And when we think in this black and white thinking, it also affects how we eat. So for example, if you've lost weight, you might think, oh, well, I really fancy, I don't know, a crumpet with butter and jam this morning, so I can have that because I've lost weight and it won't make any difference. And by next week, by this time when I weigh myself next, I'll have lost it again. It also, if I've got on the scales and I put on weight, it's like, oh, what's the point? I'm such a failure. I might as well give up dieting, and then you might have a binge or something because you think, well, what's the point in this? Or else you try harder to restrict. And then that can actually get quite serious when you're so stressed about what you're eating. That can really make an effect, have a bad effect on you. Plus the fact that weighing yourself is not realistic. It can depend on how many times, sorry to be graphic, but how many times you've been to the toilet. It will make a difference. It will make a difference, how you're changing the way that you see yourself. And it's just data. It's not a true representation. And also weight loss is not a straight line. You always have where you go up, you go down a little bit, you go up again. And hormones play an enormous role in what we eat for men and women.
Yeah.
Another example, if you've eaten more salt than usual, your body will retain more water, so you're going to weigh more that day. So just an example of a client of mine weighed herself, and she was so devastated that she put on 5 pounds. She immediately thought, there's no point in this, and sort of everything in sight. And then she realized her scales were broken. So, it's, my advice is really restrict. That's the only restriction I recommend, but to restrict how many times you get on it. They do not serve you or your emotions.
No, I agree. Well, I'm glad you're in the same sort of vein as I always. I used to feel that people were jumping on them, and as you said, changing up the rest of their day based on what they said. I know it's a measure, and I know it keeps some people safe. I mean, it must do, because there's all these clubs, slimming clubs, etc., that do it. But I think it's just making sure that you are not going to beat yourself up if you don't have quite the day, because it could be that you've retained more water or whatever, like you said, or it could, you've had a great day, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're then going to go and treat yourself. But I think one of the things that I'm often go on.
No, I was going to say a better way of estimating where you are is actually with an item of clothing. But even then, put it on once a month. Don't do it every day, every week, or so. It's just too much. And also because all the changes that you want to make, you want this to be for life.
Yeah.
And this, if you go more slowly and a step by step, you know, if you just make one change a week, just think about that. By the end of the year, you've made 52 changes. And you know, so like, you know, week 1, do one new change, week 2, keep that change up and do one more, well, just one more small thing. In a whole year, that will make such a difference to you without the pressure and the stress of dieting and weighing and judging yourself all the time.
And this is the thing, isn't it, that all these little bits, I mean, I'm always saying on this show, you know, one small thing that you can do differently as a result of listening to this, and that kind of plays to exactly what you've just said there.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm sure you'll be on this page too, Lisa, is how people can help themselves around how they feel about themselves. So moving away from the scales and what they actually put in their mouth. You know, if you feel you are being kinder to yourself, if you feel like you are important in your own mind, you are likely to feel happier. And that means then, I think it's easier then to choose what you put in your mouth, to choose how much exercise you do, to choose how much water you drink. You see, I know for myself, if I feel happier about myself, I'm much more likely to make better choices. Would you say the same?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, that is talking about self-esteem. And self-esteem is just really important. I think I mentioned before that it's really wrapped up with body image as well. Self-esteem, self-worth. So there's lots of things that you can do to really help your self-esteem. So one of them is identify your strengths. And when I mean identify them, really sit down and write them down. What are my strengths? What am I good at? And then make an effort to use them. So, okay, I've identified 3 strengths. So let's say it was, I don't know, I'm kind, I'm interested, you know, I'm interested in learning, that's strength. So then think, okay, well, what can I do that's a kind act for somebody else? So what you're doing is you're really doing it with awareness, and that really helps build self-esteem, that you've recognized your strength and you've used it. You know, even so I'm interested in learning, so I'm going to sit down and watch a documentary. Doing it with awareness, that's what really helps. Self-care, you know, I know people bandy about self-care all the time, and I often hear, well, I haven't got time for self-care. Self-care is not about going and having an hour-long massage. Self-care is about those little tiny things that you do for yourself in the day that will make your day easier. So, you're not doing them because you've eaten 6 lettuce leaves, or you haven't had that piece of chocolate. You're doing self-care because you deserve it, because you're you. So things for self-care is sitting in a chair for 5 minutes, switching off and breathing, just in and out really slowly. Moisturizing, putting hand cream on, like really rubbing it in for 5 minutes. Going outside just for 5 minutes, for a walk. So it's not about finding an hour. It's about finding 5 minutes that you can do something for you that you enjoy, that is restful and relaxing.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's a great tip, isn't it, that we have this idea that, all of the things that I need to do, and I haven't got time to do all of those things, but actually stripping it down and just thinking about what's that one small thing that I can do right now or today. And actually then acknowledging, I think the other part of this, for me anyway, from a mind perspective, is then acknowledging that you've done that. Because again, I see so many people kind of focused on all the things they haven't done. And then when you actually ask them, well, what did your day look like? Well, I did get out for a walk at lunchtime, or I did. Oh, okay. Have you noticed that you did those? Oh no, they were kind of just in the mash of everything else. And I think that again is trick, isn't it?
Definitely. It's about doing, as I said, like with the strength stuff, it's about recognizing your strengths and then using them, but using them with awareness. And it's the same, with the self-care. I find that with people, if I say to a client, for example, how was your week? Oh, it was terrible. Well, what was terrible about it? And usually you'll find there's one little minuscule thing that didn't go the way they wanted, and everything else, they've really made an effort to change behaviors.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. We've got to recognizing the effort that we're putting in, and just the minor little tiny step that you've made is a big thing. And
like a jigsaw, isn't it? There's all these pieces that make up this final picture in your mind. But how do we do a jigsaw? We do a jigsaw one piece at a time.
Exactly. No. And if you tried to do 10 pieces at a time, you'd get in a real muddle, and you might put the jigsaw puzzle away.
You would.
Think much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting that what you're talking about, because before Christmas I launched a little journal, because I was often saying to people, get a little notebook and put in set your intentions for the day, not your to-do list, but set your intentions for the day. How do you want to feel? What's your self-care for the day? What is it? What's your small thing? And then at the end of the day, put down your wins. Some people did it, but a lot of people didn't. So I made a book, a journal for them with boxes for them to fill in. And it's exactly this. It's exactly that. Those small little things that make up that bigger picture. And suddenly you get a few of these going. And if you are trying to lose weight, or you're trying to do something along these lines, you'll suddenly notice that you probably have little weight, because it's all in the right direction.
Absolutely. No, that's a really good idea. And also, if you're concerned about the way that you eat, keep a food diary for a couple of weeks, not to judge yourself, because there's no judgment involved. It's as a learning tool. So you can say, for example, I don't know, whenever I have lunch in the cafeteria, I always end up eating donuts because they're right there under my nose. Well, what can I do differently next time? I don't know. If I've got to have lunch in the cafeteria, sit with my back to the donuts so that I'm not looking at them all the time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's about, and when you do change a behavior, that's gold star treatment. It's not about, again, it's nothing to do with what you're eating. It's about changing the behavior around what you're eating. So normally I would have eaten the donuts. Today I didn't. So I give myself a gold star. I know it's a bit like being at school, but actually it's really helpful to see, well, I can learn from that, but actually I did that really well.
Exactly. But you can look back. I mean, I'm a big fan of things like sticker charts, and in the journal we've got a daily rate your day, because I think we are still driven by things like that unconsciously. As human, as adults we are. But I think one of the things that's springing up for me, Lisa, and I'm pretty sure your stories are going to be similar, is so many people have a challenge around time to be able to do some of this. So I hear clients saying, they've ended up buying something for lunch that was not what they wanted to, not healthy. It was a bit quick food, takeaway. And actually, if they change their relationship with time, then maybe on an evening they could make whatever they fancied, a nice salad or something. And then when they do, the difference in them is quite incredible. It sounds like we're talking about them as if they are children, but it is a reality, isn't it? That people then suddenly go, wow, I really did just find that 10 minutes to make whatever it was the night before. It's just that relationship with time that sort of, I think, sits parallel with this challenge around how we see food.
Yeah, I think there's two things there. That first of all, absolutely. So something I help my clients with is that time thing. So it's really easy to make your breakfast the night before, have it in the fridge, and then it's there ready to go. It's really easy to have your vegetables, chopped chop your vegetables after dinner, or when you're chopping your vegetables for that night, do double, then put the half in the fridge, and it's ready to go the next morning. And if you've got anything like a slow cooker, what I do is I put everything in the bowl the night before, and then in the morning, literally, I put it in, press it on, and then when I come home, it's ready. There is obviously bulk cooking if people, but lots of people don't have freezers. So, but if you do have any freezer space, make double. There's if you like, I mean, hopefully it's freezing today, but hopefully it's going to get warmer. Make a salad that lasts all week for lunch, and then just add a different protein source every day. But so that's one side of it. Yes, planning absolutely helps. But the other thing is, life gets in the way of all of this. If one day that all you can do is go and buy a sandwich and a packet of crisps, then go and buy that sandwich and a packet of crisps. It's more important that you eat. Yeah. But it comes with the only rule I ever give anybody. Don't buy that sandwich and packet of crisps and eat it so quickly that it doesn't touch the sides because you feel you shouldn't be eating it. It's bad for you. All that bad label that goes with the sandwich and crisps. Eat it like you're a member of royalty. So sit somewhere and eat it really slowly and stop when you are just full. You don't have to finish it. Yeah. Stop when you are just full and eat it, and just don't beat yourself up that you're eating it. This is life. Sometimes we just can't have a salad or a thermos of soup or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's okay.
I think people need to hear that, Lisa, because I hear so many people who partly think they're the only person that's thinking like this, and they are the only one who's in this space with themselves. And just to hear people saying, it is okay. Give yourself permission to if you're going to have it and enjoy it. That's what I'm always saying to people. If you're going to have the takeaway, have it and enjoy it. Don't have it and then rack yourself with a load of guilt that's going to make it not very enjoyable anymore. There's just no point. So whatever you've decided to do it, and almost like you say, do it well. But I love that idea of sitting and just eating it.
Yeah,
like a royalty. I love that idea.
I always tell people, eat it like it's a royal occasion. Sit at the table, eat it, look at it, eat it slowly. If you are never going to digest food, if you're in a stress state, you're just not. So it's going to sit in your stomach, and after you eat it, you're going to feel bloated and uncomfortable. We need to be in a relaxed state to digest food. So if you want to digest it, that's going to be the best way.
So on the hoof is almost what you're saying is not good for us when we're eating something.
No, not at all.
Is there something in?
Not at all.
Is there something, Lisa, in, like you said, eat it slowly? Is there something in how many chews? Because I've kind of heard, I don't know whether it's a real thing or not.
No, it really is a real thing. So if we think about digestion, so if you picture us in the times of cavemen, we either had to stay and fight a saber-toothed tiger or run away. And that was a very stressful situation. And to allow us to live, because our brain and our body are there for us to help us survive. So to allow us to live, certain bodily functions, they really increase. Like your heart rate goes up, your blood gets pumped faster around at a greater rate around your body. That's to give your muscles more energy so that you can either run away or fight. That's just one example. And digestion stops when you're stressed, because obviously you don't want to have to, I'm going back to toilet talk, but you don't want to need the loo when you're going to fight a tiger. So that's the first thing about why you need to be in a relaxed state. The second thing is that when you look at your food, or when you think about your favorite food, you might notice that your mouth makes saliva. Saliva is full of enzymes. All enzymes are things that help break down food. They're going to help it digest. So when I think about food, my mouth always waters, which is good. So that's why when you've got your food in front of you, look at it, appreciate it, and think, oh, yum, I can't wait to eat it. Right? Then when you put it in your mouth, you've got to chew it. We need to, well, what they say is chew your food at least 30 times per mouthful, because you don't want to swallow it until it's pulverized, because you're giving your gut too much work to do. I think 30, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, I've counted. I think, you know, it could be 2 chews, 3 chews a mouthful. So what I say to people is just add on 5.
Right.
And that's the start. So and things to help you slow down eating, things like putting your cutlery down in between a mouthful, swapping your cutlery. You know, if you've got children, it's quite a good game. Let's see how long it takes us to eat our meal with our knife and fork in the wrong hand, that kind of thing. It's all about slowing down eating, partly for digestion. But the other reason that I get my clients to really slow down on their eating is to do with hunger and fullness.
Sure.
So as you eat, your stomach stretches, and that sends a message to the brain, but your brain, you're not really conscious of that one. The other way that we eat is as we're digesting food, we release hormones. Hormones are just like chemical messengers, and they go through the bloodstream to the brain, and they say to the brain, oh, we're full now. The trouble is that it takes 20 minutes for that message to get there. So if you've eaten your food in 5 minutes straight, you're going to think, I'm still hungry, because your brain hasn't received the message yet that says you've had enough food.
Wow.
So that's another reason to really slow down while you're eating. So you want to stop when you feel that it's very, I can't think what the word is, but it's very, you've got to suss it out with practice. It's not an equation. So
Sure.
what you want to do is stop eating when you feel just full. And then, you know, 10 minutes later think, actually, am I still hungry? Have I had enough? And often that was enough. Yeah.
Usually it is, I think, isn't it? I know for me, I hate the feeling of being really, really full. Like, I can't bear it. So I'm actually always a bit like, oh, I think I've had enough before. So I must have unconsciously trained myself to know that. Oh, it's so brilliant for you to have shared some of your ideas and tips and things for people, because
it's a pleasure.
Such a, you know, it's like you say, it's such a daily necessity, and yet we have so many hang-ups and so many different scenarios that are going on all the time. So tell people where they can find you, Lisa, and what you've got to offer.
Oh, thank you. So thank you. So you can find me online at lisaungernutrition.com, and on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on Lisa Unger Nutrition. And I have just completed a freebie with 10 reasons why you shouldn't count calories. So if you go to either, you should see a link to download that. So you might like that. Brilliant. But if anybody, you know, is interested in talking to me some more, just please get in touch.
Definitely. Well, hopefully people will follow you and maybe download your little freebie. It's always good for people to get them thinking. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lisa. Have you got one little last tip for people before we go?
Oh, yes. My mind's gone blank. I would actually like to just very quick think. Some people get very confused about disordered eating and eating disorders, and they are a continuum. But I would just like to be aware of other people around you, and think for those struggling, you know, with food, if it seems all-consuming and obsessional, if it's because they're trying not to eat, it's changing their general behavior around food, then I would think about suggesting to them that they get some help with it.
Brilliant. Good tip. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.